I'd like to first have you introduce yourself and your journey loving and making films and so on.
Yeah, so I've been making films since I was young, just kind of like the classic story of parents give you a camera and you go out and you just try and experiment with it. And then that kind of went into me getting my friends together and making movies together back in the day. I did a lot of fan films. I was a big Harry Potter fan. So when I was young, I grabbed a camera and put on Harry Potter robes and went out with my friends and made movies. And then
Yeah.
it kind of turned into this like career that I wanted to do, this kind of long term career that I wanted to do. And when I came to LA, I got some success with my short films. And this is now, tomorrow is my feature film debut. And it's kind of like the first time I'm putting that stamp in the world. And it's exciting because it seems like people are receiving the film really well.
Can you talk about that jump to like feature filmmaking? Like when at what period did you decide that you were ready to like make your first feature film?
I think after film school, I had said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out and make my first feature. And then, there's a lot of setbacks with independent filmmaking with getting financing. So it took a while for us to try and find the right financier and to get the money behind it. And at a certain point, I just said, screw it. I'm going to do a movie for what I can get. And I'm going to try and make it the best thing I can. And so I spent like into COVID shooting this feature that we got this great financier, Fatty, who he's an artist that decided to invest in us, and it was like this cool being able to jump into feature filmmaking, which is such a different ball game than doing short films. Like the amount of story that you're holding with a feature film as opposed to your 5 to 15 minute short film. Yeah, very different.
Can you talk a bit about like that process of like pitching a script to different potential investors trying to get that like taking off?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. You just trying to find someone that connects with the material that you have, right? And I've gotten meetings with bigger investors and then smaller ones. I've kind of like stayed in the independent world and private investors because it's just like you're pitching an idea, you're pitching financially, and you're also pitching creatively. And if they can get behind both, if they think that your creative vision can amount to some type of investment back, then yeah, then they're interested in it. So it's kind of like mixing the business and the creative, and that's always the hardest thing for filmmakers jumping into making movies is instead of just being creative, they have to be a businessman too. It's just bringing that creativity and seeing how like it'll work on a market and how like investors can either see a profit and also be a part of something. Like that's the biggest thing with movies is there it's such a creative collaborative process that like you're allowing whoever comes into it to be a part of that process as well.
So on that note, you have a production company
Hmm.
called For Your Consideration. Talk a bit more about like what you guys have been doing, how long you've been since you've been founded, how much you've worked on, and so
Sure.
on.
Yeah, my company's called Frame of Reference Entertainment. It's a company that we started after me and my at the time producing partner, now my business partner. We did a movie called The Moment I Was Alone, and it was this short film that kind of like garnered a lot of awards, and it went on to like screen at the Screen Actors Guild, and it played with Legendary Pictures in one of their short end shows, and it just kind of like blew up a little bit, and so we went off to like decide to make a production company because we were trying to get features going, and seemed like the best step for us is to do that, and then for a while we were pitching stuff, and then we ended up shooting a short under it, and now this is our first feature under Frame of Reference Entertainment, and it's hopefully continually stepping into the features and doing more of those as time progresses. But it's been like a wild journey creating a production company, and having a place like a house for all your films rather than it's just a Kellen Gibbs film. It's also a Kellen Gibbs and Frame of Reference Entertainment film.
Yeah. So sort of the next step is that you guys have been screening this film at festivals. What is because I've experienced now this now with like short films that I've been submitting. What is
Mm-hmm.
the experience of submitting to festivals, like choosing which ones, sort of waiting for the answers? How it, was that like when you were doing this with a feature film?
Yeah, so that's the interesting game that filmmakers have when they're trying to get their stuff going. Like, yeah, that was the hardest thing to navigate when I was in film school is where do I submit? What do I like? What are they expecting from me? And where is the best place that we're gonna be able to show this? And it comes down to kind of like this weird like couple places that when you get into film festivals they like to bring back alumni, so it's nice when you've submitted and people know your work and you can say, hey, I have this new film, are you interested in watching it? And then you also just like looking at like cinequest was our first time screening there, and they have some kind of interesting concepts that they play. They're kind of more open to our movies, a drama fantasy, and there's some festivals that are kind of strictly more drama. This one allows it to be a little bit more creative on like the fantasy sci-fi thriller side. So it fits into that kind of niche that they have there. And that's what you're kind of doing when you're submitting is like, will our film play good there? And it's never really they call them competitions, but it's never really a competition, right? It's art. Like you're not really competing. It's like in a perfect world, all art can exist. It doesn't have to say, well, that one's better, get it out of here. But it's just
Or
finding the right
showcase.
place. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The place that is perfect for it to be shown, and the place that the audiences are going to connect with it. Same place with distribution and all that too. So yeah, this is like the kind of game that filming. Are you having a good time doing it, or are you hating it, or what's it been for you?
Well, I guess I sort of like submitted a lot and now waiting for answers. I
Hmm.
managed to like submit to a couple like online student festivals, which was really cool, and I got like nominated for an award, which I thought
Sweet.
was great. It was the first time that I really had a platform, like besides my own YouTube and my friends, to share something that I'd created and spent a long time on.
Uh-huh.
So it was really nice. And the Student World Impact Festival, what they do is they have like the Film Sessions podcast where they interview like a lot of the people who have been selected,
Sure.
and that was great too to like be able to share that with my friends and family.
Yeah.
But it's also, you know, any filmmaker knows that you're often going to get more no's than yeses.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're used to it. Sometimes it's still disappointing, but that's
Totally.
part of the process for sure.
Totally. I had to. This is my note to you. Never expect anything. Is the greatest way to go about it, because then you're always happily surprised. And then if you don't expect anything out of like these festivals, then you're just going along and seeing what you get. I had a
Yeah.
bad experience where I went to a festival and I expected to win. I had a film be in the festival and everyone was telling me, "Oh yeah, your film's gonna win." So I went to the award ceremony and expecting to win, and I didn't win, and it was a very humbling experience. And I went, I should not,
Yeah.
this is not about the awards. It's about the other stuff, and the awards are just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, sometimes the company is just like the honor.
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
exactly.
well, we recently filmed a director spotlight on Mel Brooks, so I like to quote him and say, "Hope for the best, prepare for the worst."
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, Mel Brooks, he's so cool.
The subject of film festivals, I'd love to hear more about being there as, I guess, a talent. You've been posting a lot about it on your social media.
Yeah.
What's it been like in terms of the network opportunities, the being able to like have a platform to just share something that a lot of people say like sharing your baby when it's like a film
Yeah.
with people who are in it for the same reasons as you, for the passion, for the love, etc.
Sure. Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, CineQuest being kind of the biggest scale I've been to, it was kind of nice because the theater was huge and the environment was just so lively. We were there for like a week, and we met a ton of filmmakers, met some pretty like high level filmmakers, and then also actors and whatnot as we were there. But it was fun. Like having a platform like that and being able to kind of be in a creative environment like that is kind of the best place for a filmmaker, right? Like it's kind of the ideal. Like this is a great way to have a vacation. We go off and we screen on a film, and then we watch a lot of films, and we meet a lot of people, and we get to go on red carpets, and it's like just makes it feel. It just feels really special when you put so much work into a project to kind of be able to celebrate it there.
For sure. Do you like sitting in on every screening, or do you eventually like cringe because it's your own thing?
Oh, for my
Like I've
my
I've
own.
experienced that.
Yeah, it's hard. I watch the audience more than I watch the movie nowadays. So I'm just like watching how
I know
they're
what that's
laughing
like.
and stuff, right? Yeah. Or not laughing and feeling emotional. We've had some kind of emotional experiences with Tomorrow, which has been kind of cool. in this kind of like messed up way is like when someone's like, "Oh yeah, I cried at your film." It's like, "Oh, that's good," but usually you don't want people to cry. No, it's been a it's been fun. I don't watch. I've seen the movie so much that now I'm kind of like I'm desensitized to all of it. So
So I want to talk a little bit more about the film itself. I saw it a couple of days ago. It's a really interesting movie and really well done. I really loved the atmosphere building and the
thank you.
music. I wanted to elaborate a bit on what was the tone that you set out to create with stuff like the music or the editing. There's a lot of jump cuts in this that I noticed. What was
Sure.
sort of the mood that you wanted to go for?
Well, if you watch it, you kind of get this. The beginning, it starts off as this kind of linear story, and you just kind of watching this girl go through it like one day, and then as you get have her jump into these different bodies, you kind of lose this sense of time. And we tried to emulate that with the editing, with how you there's like montages in there that start jumping into different bodies and spending a lot of time doing it. And the idea was, and the reason you have those cuts was to kind of set the tone of like how long has she been doing this? You don't know, and kind of confuse your audience to this sense of like, oh, this is just what she does every day, right? So you're getting the idea was perspective based. It's all based on kind of what she's experiencing through this whole fantastical journey she's going on. So that was me and Tyler sitting down for a while, going through that. Tyler's our editor, going through that and trying to figure out how what was the best way to convey this, because it's different when you take a screenplay and you have the words on a page, and then when you get into the editing room, I love the kind of process of going through and finding the movie in the edit after gotten all your pieces, especially for this one where there's like so many pieces. um, and then same thing with Felipe, our composer, where we sat down and were like, what are we trying to do, as opposed, both of those guys were trying to take these kind of small vignettes, small stories of these different people and bring it into one cohesive story, and they were my glue for that whole story. So it was like it's funny that you bring up both of them at the same time, because they kind of do work in tandem with each other, where Tyler's editing and bringing this thing together and Felipe's bringing the music that kind of like is the layer on top that kind of guides the story. So we were trying to find, with Felipe, we were trying to find a thematic element that we could kind of pass through so that the music, it felt consistent throughout, and you felt this kind of little girl going through this journey, and it was kind of like taking the Spielbergian type stuff that I liked with big orchestras, and with him with the weirder stuff he wanted to explore, with kind of these stranger synth things that he put in there, and it was a cool kind of mix, especially in those climactic sequences when you kind of bring them together.
Were there any other like concepts that you played around with, or was it always very like I guess straightforward in the way of like she's waking up in different bodies, or were there any other like fantastical elements that you thought of like throwing in there? What was like coming up with a concept like?
I think it kind of stayed just a person waking up in a different body, because I thought there was so many avenues you could take that, and so many ways that you could explore kind of these kind of metaphorical things. Like the story is about a girl waking up in a different body every day, and it's kind of fantastical, and you kind of think like, oh, it's this wild journey that I would never go on, but she experiences some things that are like what everyday people experience, right? Like with her waking up as a father, and waking up as a girl who's in slightly abusive relationship, and like these types of things that like I thought would be really nice to explore on like a thematic level, and kind of the existential journey of what it's like and who we are, and that type of stuff. So I do a lot of like these kind of like small fantasy movies, or like low fantasy. I don't know, they have like a sci-fi terminology for it, is like lo-fi or something, but uh, kind of similar, but not with science fiction, right? With like these fantastical elements. So I'll take one thing and I'll follow it on a journey, and just use that as the one fantastical thing, and everything else is kind of like realistic life, stuff that we experience, because all that stuff kind of adds the meat to the story. Yeah,
And what was the casting process like for all the different Harpers? Because um, there's a lot of them, and they're given like so much, I guess, meat to work with. Like
uh
even like the original Harper, like she's only in like the first bit of the movie, but she leaves such a mark in terms of like the strength that she gives to the movie.
sure. Yeah, it was a long process, because we were casting, we were shooting over, I think it was 6 months. We broke up, but we were shooting in the middle of COVID, so we had to break it up into like we'd do 6 days, and then we'd wait a month or so, and then we'd do another 6 or 7 days, and then we'd do another 6 or 7 days broken up. And that was just because we didn't want anyone to get infected. We were doing testing, and it was an easier way to kind of break up that kind of long term thing. And so the casting, we had some of the cast for the whole thing done, and then we would cast little people in the months in between. So we were kind of adapting as we went through this whole process. So it was a really crazy casting experience, honestly. Like usually you go out, you cast, and then you find your leads, and then you just work with them. But this was kind of it was just moving through the movie because you have to. I kind of felt like I had to allow things to change and to adapt to them as we move forward so that Harper's performance would adapt because you're working through different people. You're not working with an actor that can come back and say, oh, when, on this page I did this. They're just kind of working in the moment off of the stuff that they've seen. So it was cool to like, we almost shot in a linear fashion. So I was able to take things that people would do, like the way that someone would cross their legs, so it represented the same way Harper did it, or like those types of things that they would kind of pull out in these little moments and use them later on. And it was kind of like you don't usually get that as much. You can, but like just through different people was just kind of a incredible experience to be a part of.
That's really cool. So basically, like you were casting still while you were shooting.
Yeah, yeah, we were. Harper was the first thing that we shot, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to know who she was, right? Like she had to say, like you say, she had to give an impact. So I
She
wanted
had to set
to
the tone for all the other actors.
exactly, and I remember sending some footage to some of the Harpers and saying like, take a look at this and see if there's anything you want to pull from this. So they all kind of got creative liberty on that from what they saw from her. So some of them probably bring in different traits that she had, but all of them kind of like making that one character, you know?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up this segment, do you want to mention where tomorrow is going to be screening, where people could maybe find it
Sure.
eventually?
Yeah, so right now we're screening in film festivals. It just played in San Jose, and our website is thefilmtomorrow.com. And then you can follow us on Instagram too for frame of reference. It's frame of ref ENT at and that's on Instagram.